Hey guys, welcome to your last unit for your review session. Today we're going to talk about how do we factor and then how do we recognize and use properties and laws of operations with real numbers. So to get started, let's really quick head to some reverse or inverse operations. So the operation is addition, so the inverse of addition, of course, we know is subtraction. The inverse of subtraction is addition. Multiplication, that's division. And then the opposite of dividing is multiplying. All right, really quick, good. Let's talk about how do we solve for an indicated variable. So for example 1, we see our variable in parentheses is y. All that means is how do I get this y by itself? So really quick, let's isolate everything. I like to draw my river just so I know exactly where I'm going. So I'm going to minus 8x on both sides. I want to get y by itself. This is cancel. I have negative 2y equals, I like to put my x in the front, but sometimes it doesn't matter, plus 18. So I could have done plus 18 minus 8x, it doesn't matter. So here I have negative 2y. Remember, this minus sign comes down. So what I want to do is get y by itself. So remember, this is multiplication. The inverse of multiplying is dividing. So I divide everything by minus 2. This is cancel. Y is equal to 4x. Yes, positive. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. Minus 9. And that's my final answer. Now let's take a look at number 2. I want to solve again for y. So let's first get rid of my 11. That's plus 11 on both sides. This is cancel. 3x plus 5y, that's what I didn't use, is equal, plus 11 on both sides. Not 10, 11 plus 11 on both sides. There you go. Remember, what I do on one side, I do to the next. This is equal to 11. Good. Get rid of my x. What is left over? Cancel. 5y is equal to, doesn't matter if I put the x or the 11. No, doesn't matter. Then my last and final step, I have 5y's. I want to get rid of, remember this is an invisible multiplication there, so the inverse of multiplying is dividing. Excellent. This 5's are cancel. I am left with y equals minus 3 over 5x plus 11 over 5. That's my final answer. Now, I want you to go ahead and try the next one on your own. Pause the video, then again, check your answer. This actually is the same exact thing as y equals x over 3 minus 14 over 3. Same exact thing. Either one of these will work. So let's go ahead and try number 4 by yourself and see what you get. Solve for the indicated variable. There you go. You should get something that looks like this. Same thing as, remember, we said x over 2 plus 7 over 2. X over 2 plus 7 over 2 equals y. Same exact thing, guys. So, moving on, next to our next question, number 5, it says solve for the integrated variable, again in parentheses. So in this case, I'm looking for b. Let's just rewrite this so we can see it a little better. A is equal to half b times h. I want to solve for b. So, first thing I want to do here is get rid of any denominator here. Remember, this is dividing, so the inverse of dividing is multiplication. Remember, what I do to one side, I do to the other. So these two are canceled. This is 2a is equal to bh. it's b. Remember, 1 times anything in math is same. I want to get b by itself, so now I'm going to divide by h. This is cancel. Final answer is 2a over h equals to b. So go ahead, let's see what number 6 looks like. I want to see solve for pi. Remember, you can use the word pi, or on your paper you will see pi. So want to get pi by itself. I'm sorry, no, we want to get r. So first thing I need to do is get rid of pi. This is multiplying, so I want to divide. This is cancel. A over pi equals r square. Great job. So now we want to get r by itself, and I have r squared. So how do we get rid of a square? That's correct. We take the square root. I remember what we do on one side, we do to the next. So the squares are canceled. And then my final answer over here will be the square root of a divided by pi is equal to r. And this is exactly what they're asking me for. Good. So let's see one more example before I let you try one by yourself. So we have a is equal to half. A is equal to half b1 plus b2. And I want to find for that highlighted right there. So remember again, we said that every time we have a denominator, that's the first thing I want to get rid of. Denominator are dividing, so I need to do the opposite. These 2's are cancel. 2a is equal to, let's see here. So now that we have 1 is left there, remember 1 times anything is the same exact thing. So again, I'm looking for b1, so I need to get rid of b2, which is minus b2 on both sides. This is cancel. 2a minus b2 is equal to b1. That's my final answer. So let's pause the video again, take a try at number 8 and see what you get. You should get something that looks like that. Remember, I is equal to PRT. You want to get rid of P and T. Those are multiplying, so you do the inverse. Keep going. Try the last 2. Let's see how those goes. Number 9, you should get y minus mx is equal to b. And then for number 10, you should get something that looks like this. Remember, use what we said. Get rid of the denominator. In this case, it's r. And then try to get rid of everything else. How do we apply this? So really quick, it says the total number of miles that a honeybee can fly in its lifetime is modeled by the equation t equals m parentheses d minus 21. T is equal to the total time, m is the miles flown each day, and d is lifetime. So here's our question. Some bees can fly up to 55 miles per day, so that is m, and their muscle can take up to 500 miles before giving out. That's my t. 2 things. Solve the equation for d and find out how many number of days these big birds can live. So to solve for d here, I need to divide by m on both sides. So t equals m d minus 21. Divide by m on both sides. Again, I like to put my river. The m's are cancel. We're left with t divided by m is equal to d minus 21. 1d by itself, so I'm going to add 21 to both sides. These are canceled. D is left here. I have t divided by m plus 21. So now that I solve for d by itself, the next part of the question says, how can we find d? So remember, we had some numbers, so we know that t is 500, m is 55, plus 21 will give me the days. So if you were to work this out in the calculator, you will get 9.09 plus 21 is equal to D. To just round this up to the number of days, we'll get 30 is approximately equal to D, meaning 30 days the bees will be alive for. So moving forward, no, we're almost there. We just got a few more. How do we find the greatest common factor? So greatest common factor meaning I'm going to find what's the largest number that these two terms have in common. So the first thing that I want to do is break these up in terms of prime factorization. So remember the factor tree. Let's break this down. This is 5 times 2, and I know these are all prime. So this becomes 2 times 5 times x. And 25, we know that is 5 times 5. So we look for what they have in common. I see they have a 5 in common. That's what's outside my parentheses. And I know I have to have two terms in here. So from the 10x, there's 2 and there's an x. So 2 times x is 2x. And remember, we were dealing with minus up here. So we bring minus, and then there's a 5 that's left over. That's it. Now let's take a look at this over here. We have 3 terms now. We have 5x to the third, so we know that's 5 is prime, x to the term is x times x. 8x squared. If you're not sure, do it up here. 8 is 4 times 2, 2 is prime, and then 4 of course is 2 times 2. So 8 is actually 2 times 2 times 2 times x, because I have x squared. I have 7x, and again, I know 7 is prime, and x is just x. So if you look carefully, if you look carefully here, they actually have an x in common. Remember, that's what outside my parentheses. What's left over here? 5. X times x is x squared plus, because that's my first sign, 8, and I have 2 times 2, which is 4 times 2 is 8, and then I have 1x that's left over, and then minus 7, minus up here. That's my final answer. Why do we need to review this? Because we're going to be using this when we go solve quadratic. So the first thing I like to do is, what's my A, what's my B, what's my C? Remember, any quadratic is always in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So my A is 1, my B is 8, and my C is 15. Now, as the x method, as if you remember from 9th grade, my x method, what do we want to do with? So in the top, it's always A times C, and in the bottom, it's my B term. So A times C is 1 times 15, which is 15, and then my B term, which is 8, goes in the bottom. So think of two numbers. When you multiply it, you get 15, but when you add it, you get 8, and that's correct. 5 and 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 plus 3 is 8. And then all we're going to do is factor these out into factored form. So this becomes x plus 5, and the other one is x plus 3. And that's my final answer. Let's try to do one more together. Here again, the first thing, remember, A, B, C. What's my A? What's my B? My A is 1, my B is 6, and my C this time is negative 27. Be careful with that negative. So at the top is A times C, which is negative 27. And then at the bottom is 6. So two numbers that I multiplied, I get negative 27. And when I add it, I get 6. So try to think. Perfect. 9 and negative 3. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27, but 9 plus negative 3 is a positive 6. And then after that, guys, all you do is put it in factored form. X plus 9, x minus 3. Bam. That's it. So let's keep it going. We got 3 minutes to go. Last thing is these special quadratics. So with the special quadratic, all it means is that my A is something other than 1. In this case, my A is 2, my B is 3, and my C is negative 2. Same thing applies. A times C in the top, and b in the bottom. So a times c is actually -4, and my b is 3. So again, think of two numbers. When you multiply it, you get -4, and when you add it, you get +3. Excellent. 4 and -1. So now the difference here is with these special quadratic, I'm going to be replacing the b term with what I just found out. So we will have something that looks like 2x squared plus 4x minus 1x minus 2. So all these that I highlighted is basically the same exact thing. I am replacing this with these two numbers, and remember I add an x because my b term is always in an x. And after we do this, I want you to take one term, two term, the first two terms, you look for what they have in common and factor. So in this case, 2x squared plus 4x, that's something like we did right back here. You have two terms and I want to factor. So 2x squared plus 4x, I know they have a 2x in common, and then what's left over? X plus 2, close parentheses. How do I know that? So let's just make a little note here on this side. So 2x squared is the same as 2 times x. 4x is the same as 2 times 2 times x. They have a 2 in common. They have a x in common. So remember, that's outside, and x is left over and a 2 is left over. Remember, the sign in the middle is addition. Alright? So if you're not sure, just write it out on the side. That's perfectly fine. There's no issue to that. Then we look at the second half of it, which is the minus 1x minus 2. So looking at this, they have nothing in common. When they have nothing in common, it's always going to be a +1. So if I was to say +1, I'm sorry, -1 here. Look at it. They both have a negative sign. So they have a -1 in common. This becomes x plus 2. One hint is that these two parentheses are always going to be the same exact thing. So this is actually, since it's the same, I'm just going to write it once. See these two that are just outside? I'm going to just give it to a parentheses, and then this will be my final answer. I know that was a long one and a little tough one, but let's try this again on one more example. Remember, first thing, A, B, C. A is 3, B is 10. I think on your paper you have 8. Let's just make these changes right here. C is -8. Same exact thing. A times C. Perfect. And then 10 in the bottom. Two numbers. When I multiply it, I get -24. When I add it, I get 4. Excellent. 12 times -2. Now remember, I'm replacing this b term, so this actually is 3x squared plus 12x minus 2x minus 8. Look for what these two have in common. I can tell that they have a 3x, so this becomes x plus 4. Remember, you're not sure, break this down. 12 is broken down in 4 times 3. This is broken down in 2 times 2. So if you're not sure, just write it out. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing about that. Eventually, you'll be able to do this without writing. Now look at the last part of it. They both got a -2. And again, what's left over from this is x, and this is positive, because remember, I want a negative. The only way I can have that is a negative times a positive would give me negative. Plus 4. Remember, I told you these two parentheses are always going to have something in common. So just write it back one more time, and then these two that are out, we're just going to give it one parenthesis to make it look, and that will be my final answer. So what I need you guys to do is work on your portfolio assignment, make sure it's completed, check on the website, and if you have any questions, we're going to talk about it in class.